this thing, this particular repository, it is nothing. This is my model, right? This the I repository and repository. You can say that in one part, this is totally my repository, right? If you see this particular controller, it is creating context. If I'm going to go to this particular function of proxy helper, which is I have defined into my common layer, this is used to load repository on runtime, and it is reading that particular DLL. It is basically get the assembly info and read that particular DLL. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So this is the model locator XML. It is reading that particular model locator.xml, like in the sense, if you're passing the repository as user repository, then it is going to read that particular user repository. If I'm going to pass IL repository, it is going to read the EL repository. If I'm going to pass IPA repository, it is going to read product repository. If I'm going to use admin repository, it is going to read admin repository here. So this proxy helper is nothing. It is basically reading that particular DLL from that model locator.xml, because in model locator.xml we have defined all our this particular DLL is going to read from the library. So this in that user profile controller, it is reading that particular DLL on runtime. So what exactly is happening is, this is my controller. So my request comes to this controller first. Now what we have done is, we have implemented the IOC in measure of control dependency injection. So we are basically using service locator. We can implement dependency injection in many ways. So we have implemented it using service locator, right? So using that service locator, we are pointing to that particular model, because we in project there might be many number of modules, right? A, B, C, D, right? So if your request comes to the controller A, so it is supposed to give a call to the model of A model, right? So depending, right? So we have created a DLL of that A model. We have created that model, right? This is my model. This repository is my model. We have created this model. It has created its DLL into this particular. We have defined a common path, the libraries folder path. We have defined it into the physical folder libraries. We have passing these DLLs into this library folder. Now we need to run those DLLs on runtime. So using the service locator, we are pointing to that particular DLL of the model. If you come to this model locator, it is clearly mentioned that we are reading on runtime these particular repositories. These repositories are nothing. This is your model, and we have stored this model into this libraries folder. This is my location, right? So these all are my models. So I am reading this particular model from the controller on the runtime using service locator. This particular code, this particular portion of code, this is basically reading the repository, or you can say that the model in other terms. So I'm going to say that.
Okay.
Now when your request comes to the model, or you can say that your repository, it goes to the SQL repository. That SQL repository is nothing. That is something it is going to interact with the EDMX, right? With the EDMX, we have created this context. I hope you understand the word context in terms of EDMX, or maybe in terms of linking, right?
Yeah.
What exactly happens? We are having a database, right? And this is your data context. You can see that. This is your data source. No idea about data context? Okay, not an issue. Data context is nothing, Bhavin. This is you can say that your link queue, right? It can connect to any kind of data source. It may be either your Excel, it may be your XML, maybe your SQL Server, maybe your Oracle, or anything, any data source, right? So it can interact with this data source using the data context. Data context is nothing. It basically acts as a bridge between your data source and between your link queue. Exactly, it is a kind of bridge. Like in terms of ADO.NET, if you want to interact, if you want to fill your data set, then how you basically fill up your data set? Can you tell me?
Sorry,
Now in ADO.NET, in ADO.NET, how you fill up your data set, data set. So we are having data adapter for that, right?
Oh yes, data adapter. Sorry.
Yeah. So data adapter is nothing. It basically helps us to fill your data set, to fill up your data set with the whatever the data it is having, right?
Yeah.
So like if you remember correctly, so this is your data set. This is your data set. Now this is your data adapter. This data adapter dot fill basically fills the data set. So it acts as a bridge between your data source and your area.net.
Yeah.
Right? Correct?
Yeah.
Similarly, we are having this in link view. We are having data context. It basically helps to create a connection, act as a bridge between your data source and the link.
Yeah.
Correct? So
yeah.
Similarly, we are having this thing. We have created this context. Can you see this context? This is my connection string. Because if you are working with EDMS, you must be knowing about this app.config file. Can you see this connection string?
Yeah.
Right? And I hope you must know about this. You basically go to this add new item. Oh, my application is running. Whenever you create your, this data, this is your EDMX, click on add. Now, in our case, since I told you this is going to be database first approach, you need to get it the data from the database, click on next. Then you need to define your connection string, click next. Now, here you basically give your connection string name. So in our case, it is this thing. Click on next. So if you want to define your connection string, you can give the name. And then whatever the things you want to populate, you can populate from here. And you need to click on finish. Similarly, we have done that part, and this is my connection string name, and it has created the corresponding EDMS, right?
Yeah.
What's the point? Now, so as I told you, when request comes to the SQL repository, right? If I'm going to open the particular SQL repository for one of my modules, so this is the context. This is my connection string name. Can you see this? So this is my data context, right?
Yeah.
And now here I am getting the result, whatever, depending upon query type, whatever the query you want to pass. And it sends back the request to the view. Now, if I go to my particular controller, can you see this? I am returning the partial view, and this is my first parameter. This is my view name, and this is the model that I am passing.
Yeah.
Correct? So can you see now what exactly my view is? So this is my view. I go to this particular view. This is my total view. I mean, it isn't properly because either you can use ASP.NET MVC grid. We are having MVC grid for that. We have used tables, right? We can use whatever you want. But why we have focused upon this table? This is more lighter way, right? So we have implemented. This is my total HTML. This is the HTML that I have used into my application, and you can see that from this particular page. This is a very big page. I mean, it is a very big module. You can see that. And this is the total JavaScript that I have used into my application. It is very big. I mean, the jQuery, not exactly the JavaScript, sorry for that. It is totally the jQuery that I have used, and I have implemented for, the validation part. I have implemented for, uploading the photos. I have implemented for deleting the records. I have implemented for, adding the new rows to the grid. Then I have basically checked the duplicacy using this jQuery part. Duplicacy, like in the sense, you cannot have the same, like suppose there is a table. I'm just telling you the scenarios where we have used a lot of jQuery. So this is a grid, this is a record. So suppose these are having 3 drop downs in the column. These are all the drop downs. And you can add, there is an add new button for that. You can add, there is an add new button for that.
Okay.
When you click on add new button, it is going to populate the new row, right? With the same drop down and picking up the values from the master table. Now, when you click on save button, you cannot have the duplicate values. So it is not going to be very good thing if I'm going to check it on the server side. So it is very good when you are going to use the client side code. So we have implemented the same using the jQuery part. right? Then we have implemented lot of watermark implementation. We have implemented, date pickers. We have implemented knockout.js. We have implemented, that knockout and that Angular, knockout and Angular JS over here. So we have implemented, there is a lot of jQuery. So that's what I am telling you, the main difficulty that you always, you can say that not always, I mean, you may follow, I mean, you may face this grade is more towards the jQuery part. Once you are good into HTML, you can do very good jQuery. So your jQuery should be very strong. So this is all the jQuery part that I have implemented throughout the application. And it is not a very basic jQuery, it is our advanced version of jQuery. We have implemented, the Angular and knockout.js over here, other than the normal jQuery part. So that, if you don't have any idea about jQuery, then that's not an issue. And what I'm going to do is, we are going to have separate, 2 to 3 sessions onto jQuery part especially. Because without jQuery, there is nothing in this, MVC code. And other than that, you must be knowing about if you're working with this, MVC, we are having different type of views over here, right? We are having partial views, we are having normal views, then we are having, this bundle config file. You can see that these are all of our CSS.
Sorry to interrupt, but
the controller and the repository. I mean, your request comes to the controller, right? Your request comes to the controller. Here it comes to the controller request, right? Then it is going to call a particular, here basically in this, in this 3 line of code, I am implementing this IOC using service locator, right? This proxy helper is nothing. This proxy helper I have created into my common functionality, and it is going to read that particular DLL, model DLL, or you can say that it is responsible to load the model, right, on runtime, inside a static method. So on the runtime, it is going to decide on which particular container, right, or which particular, you can say that the model needs to get instantiated. So it is going to decide on the runtime. So if I'm going to talk about MVVM, we are having a construct of static container, right? We are going to implement a static constructor. Inside the static constructor, we are going to define the Unity container. It is going to register the particular model, and on the runtime, it is going to decide which particular view it, or we can say that a model needs to get instantiated. Similarly, here we have used a kind of similar kind of approach, but we have just changed the way. The way in the sense like we have used the inversion of control, IOC. We have used the dependency injection. We have used the DI. We have used the DI. We basically use the DI in MVVM as well. Similarly, we have used the DI, but here we have used service locator for that. So on the runtime, it is going to decide, it is going to read a particular DLL, right? Which particular repository wants to get instantiated, or which particular model wants to get instantiated with a combination of which particular view model, right? And it is going to pull the data from there, right? So this is the way that we have used that particular MVVM. If I'm going to talk about MVVM specifically, that is for WPF or Silverlight, we are having view model and model, right? And our main, you can say that objective in MVVM applications and MVC application, if you are using the DI or something like that, which particular view you want to get, which particular model you want to get instantiated, view model you want to get instantiated. So that's why they have come up with this Unity container kind of thing, right? Inside that, so we are having static constructors for that. Inside the static constructors, we are going to define the Unity container. And depending upon which particular view you have passed from the top, right, in terms of MVVM, it is going to locate that particular view model, and it is going to instantiate that particular model inside the container. And similarly, we are having, this DI over here. So that's why, I am telling you that this application internally contains lot of logic. It contains lot of logic inside that. We have implemented the same, with view models and everything. So it's not like that, I have just shown you a kind of, structure only. And other than that, we have implemented lot of AJAX call over here. Why do we need AJAX call, and why we basically needed that agent call. So there is a kind of, it is similar to that ASP.NET only, but a similar, some you can say kind of small syntax change over here. That's it. Then they have implemented search API model. Again a kind of client side, because the concept of MVC is to focus more upon client side rather than on server side. In my application, there is no external DLLs or no external nugget files, etc., etc. This is purely object-oriented application in which we have implemented a kind of Ninject, but it is without any dependency on any other external API. That's it. So that's the thing. I mean, Ninject is similarly Ninject is doing the same thing, but we have done the same thing in some different manner. Like if I talk about MVVM, if you're going to talk about MVVM, right? So what exactly is MVVM? We are having that MVVM Lite. If you have heard about that MVVM Lite. Depending upon your business, like suppose as I told you in the very initial, when we started, I told you, depending upon your requirement in the business, if you want to have show only 10 fields, right? Or maybe the combination of different views. Like suppose, from this view 1, I just want to have 5 fields, and from view 2, I want to have 2 fields. From view 3, I want to have 2 fields. So it is going to take combination of 10 fields using 3 views, right? Correct? So we have implemented the same. So that's why I have taken that, the model part. Actually, the thing is that, this is something, if you are going to talk about, these models are nothing. This is plain object Coco classes. You know about Coco classes? Yeah, this is plain object classes. These are plain object classes, nothing. So this is totally Coco classes, and depending upon your business requirement, which field you want to use, you can use those. So yeah, the GUID is nothing. GUID is a unique identifier, right? Like suppose, okay, in one of our applications we have used that GUID. The reason for that is, right, there are two things in the application. When you implement any application, you basically at the end, client always wants to look for auditing, right? The auditing of the data, right?
Yeah.
So similarly, we have used that we were able to do that auditing and using entity framework only. If you have heard about, if you have, I'm not so sure for how long you are using EDMX, but using EDMX, yeah, you can say that the very big advantage that I found with the EDMX is, I find with the EDMX is, it basically helps us using 5 lines of code, 5 or 10 lines of, there is hardly a 10 line of code, and using the 10 line of code, we were able to do the auditing part, right? We have implemented in one of our projects, so in which we have captured this auditing data, whatever the data has been updated and whatever the data has been deleted, right? That particular data we just need for auditing. And other than this, we have to implement a tracking part as well. Tracking part in the sense, like suppose if I'm going to talk about employee screen, and it is having around 50 fields, in which particular, and 50 fields are coming from, you can say that 10 or you can say that 5 to 6 different tables. What exactly the client wanted, client was looking for, which particular field has been updated by whom and when, recorded by, modified by, when it has been changed, and which particular field. Like suppose you have changed your post-graduation degree, right? You have changed your post-graduation degree from MTech to MS2, right? So even the client wants that particular thing. So this is something known as tracking. So in order to implement the tracking, we have created 2 tables. One is like suppose table employee, and there is corresponding table of employee audit, which is the replica of that table employee, but with some extra fields like action code. Which action code you have implemented, like update, delete, or update or delete, and when data has been inserted into the audit table. Then after that, we have created one GUID. Using the GUID, we were able to identify that this particular record belongs to the particular record of that upper table. So we have implemented for this particular tracking reason, we have implemented the GUID into our application, into our database part. So this GUID is nothing. This GUID basically creates a unique identifier, which basically helps us to compare 2 records in unique manner.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Other than this, Yeah, and in one again in one of our example, we were supposed to implement the import functionality. Import functionality, like suppose I don't want to use the screen. I have an Excel. I'm going to put the first name, last name, address, phone number, education, work history, etc., etc., etc. for the employee. And then what we have done is we have implemented the same using you need to update the Excel, then you need to upload that particular Excel, then it is going to put that Excel on the runtime in one staging table. Staging table is nothing that basically contains all the fields that you have defined into the Excel, and it is going to put that Excel into that staging table. And on the runtime, we have implemented the GUID on the .NET C# part. Why we have implemented the GUID? The reason for that is because you can implement that Excel, you can upload that Excel n number of times, and we have to compare, for one particular session, how many times you have uploaded that particular Excel, right? So when your application is running, it was, when you're uploading the same Excel into same module, this creating one GUID throughout your, you can say that the session of your application, because you were supposed to compare the data between those two. So GUID is nothing. This is a unique identifier, which basically helps us to compare the record, right? So that's the reason that we have implemented the GUID part. I mean, in real world application, I'm telling you, I mean, the way that we have used it.
Okay. I've seen this file which you opened it. So controller access to MVC4 and web applications and assigning roles and membership. So I know the kind of basic, as I said again, I know the basic of the whole MVC. Is there any way, like, I can send you some information, like, for example, what I want to learn, just kind of in one session, I want to learn about AutoMapper and Ninja I can do at the same time.
Okay.
I want to create some of the different things, like just because I don't want to go through the theory and so on. I just want to understand using kind of a project where how to implement again IOC, repository pattern, AutoMapper, and then also the testing part where I can just do the testing like which one I use it.
Okay, so that's not an issue. I mean, Bhavin, what you can do is you can modify the modules. I think you must be having this module file with you, the MVC4 module part, and you can modify depending upon your requirement, and then we can come up with this the final stuff that you want to learn into your session. That's not an issue. That's okay.
Okay. And then also, like, as I said again, that some of the major question I'm learning, if I do solve it and if I want to test.
No, we have to, we are just migrating our application from ASP.NET into MVC5, right? So this is the application that I just shown you that was in MVC4. Now we have got, I mean, there's one project that is going on that is into, moving the application from ASP.NET to MVC5. Because, whatever the applications that have been made into ASP.NET, we are moving that application into this MVC, depending on the client. This is the requirement from our client. So we are doing that MVC5 as well, but we have just started that part. So more into this MVC4 part and more into this MVC4 part.